Hi, Dick. Just wanted to comment on your last video about Yellowstone and visiting, etc., and the Rangers, among other topics. Yeah, I went to kind of drove through on my way back to Chicago back in 2013. What was it? I went to the Boiling River, and then I went to just drove through and then on out towards into Wyoming. I guess it was. It's like I went up some hill. There was a ranger station, information station. So I just went in there, just to check things out. I think maybe I thought maybe I'll wander around, or excuse me, should I do a hike perhaps? Sorry, I want to make a note. I just remembered something. So yeah, overall it was pretty interesting. It kind of struck me what I saw. It kind of looked like a theme park to me, more than an honest to God, wilderness. But, I didn't get that far into Yellowstone. And, half of my family was from the UP, the Upper Peninsula, for those who aren't from the Great Lakes area, which is actually more, not desolate, excuse me, getting old, but, it's desolate isn't the right word, like sparsely populated, or has been historically. I think there are people, maybe, there are people now moving, especially around Marquette, Michigan, because of the university and the cultural amenities, and what? They, they're, so the population has gone up, and yeah, with that, the bears in the Upper Peninsula area, I take it, are much more well fed than, when my family was, when I heard stories from my family, of life up there, which would have been like, what, the end of the 30s into the 1940s, the time of the Great Depression, basically, or the end of it. Drinking alcohol-free beer, so. But back then, one of my family members, she had to wear a bell, what we call a bear bell, to let the bear know that you were coming. And I always grew up being told, don't go into the woods, in that area, or, in the upper Midwest, without wearing a bear bell, because, back then at least, and maybe even now, not so much now, but, back then, if you, first, if you surprised a bear with its cubs, you could get attacked. And the other thing was, I'm driving up one time, into northern Minnesota, and I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I brought my 357, and I think I had my shotgun as well. And, she said, oh, well, that's okay, but what you really need is a slug gun. And, I thought that was kind of funny. But that was the attitude, right? Is it's 1936, 37, 1945. You're, whatever, a young person in the UP, or, whatever, a child in the UP, you have to wear a bear bell, and maybe when you get older, you might even carry a slug gun with you, back then. But now we have what I would call imperialist bears. I don't know why I'm getting that blinking in the background. I guess it's from the light or the camera or something. I can't quite tell. But so, oh, that's really annoying. But anyway, I'll try to live with it. Sorry, if I tilt it this way, will it get better? No, it's just, well, okay. Anyway, so I'll look away, try not to get distracted. But what was my point? So, right. So the bears then, there weren't tourists coming to the UP then, basically, or seasonal, people with seasonal homes, summer homes, whatever, or even winter homes, coming up there because it was basically. It was a working class town. It was railway and timber and mining, and for that period, it was also the Great Depression. So people just didn't have any money to travel. I suppose, not like that, and it was a world unto itself. And so the animals, the people, they didn't even have enough meat. Right, in my family, so any meat or any food they had, even vegetables or like a orange from Florida was you got that once a year at Christmas. The bears weren't that well fed, right? So you have black bears, and I guess some of them can get large or whatever, or just aggressive, and they're hungry, and you better have a gun or a means to defend yourself and wear a bell, right? So that was the mentality, So then 2013, right, decades later, what is that, 30 to 2000, about 80 years later. Well, I come to find out around that time or shortly thereafter that, now they're basically, imperialist bears. They're just living off of all the tourists and the economic prosperity of, America, the land of the free and, or the land of the well-fed suburbanite, who goes up there, and they actually would feed the bears from one restaurant. The bears weren't a concern in the UP. They're pretty much well fed. They're not going to attack you and try to eat you. So, nevertheless, I'm not going into that area unarmed. And so, 2013, I go to the ranger station just to, check out things, whatever tourist information, find out whatever. And who do I meet? Or I should first say I have a Glock 20 short frame. At that time, I since sold it. I guess I'd carry a 1911, with a hard cast 255 grain load. So. But I disarm, right? Because I've read enough that I know, technically where I'm going, it's a federal facility, and it's a no-no. It's actually, I think it's a felony or some violation of law. I can't quite remember right now, but it's technically it's a serious violation. But whatever, bullshit. But still, sorry, but, I grew up also during COINTELPRO, and my family, even back in the 30s or before, they were, left, and generally did not trust the police, because we were in labor unions. That was our ethos and our religion, and, the cops were not friendly to us. So anyway... but, at the same time, we were not liberals. At the same time, I was in the Green Party from like 1999 to about 2011. So this is shortly after I stopped being active with the Green Party because, well, various other reasons. But I knew, a lot of those extremist liberals and, what do they call them? Demo Greens, basically Democrats. but in the Green Party, liberals, super liberals, weirdos, etc. So, okay, whatever, go into the info station there in Yellowstone, and I'm looking at the bear spray, and they're selling it for like $50 a bottle. And as a social democrat, someone who was raised in that tradition, I looked at that and I was like, WTF? It's like, this is a public park. It's like America's #1 public park. This is a public facility, and you're ripping people off for 200% of what bear spray should sell for. And, at the same time, someone had told me, I think maybe a ranger, or I think, one of the rangers, maybe not the law enforcement ranger, or maybe it was, I forget, but, excuse me, one of them told me, we had a couple of rangers here this summer, I guess 2013, and they were walking about with, bear spray, and a grizzly charged them, and one emptied the bottle of bear spray into the grizzly, and then the second ranger did so, but the grizzly didn't stop. The grizzly, I guess, was in enough pain that, and was suffering and blinded, maybe, I don't know. Is it that their sense of smell is hyper acute? So I think the bear spray is actually less strong than for a human. But so it really, the bear was affected, but it did not stop. And I can't remember all the details, but I remember something to the effect of the bear, whacked one of the rangers, and then whacked another ranger at least, maybe bit one of the rangers. It was a grizzly, I'm pretty sure, a big brown bear. And the rangers had to get what was it, 45 or maybe more stitches each. Big, big wounds, like a knife, just through them. And, the bear didn't kill them, but nevertheless, it was a very unpleasant experience. And the bear could have very easily killed them. And I guess these sweet little liberal rangers, didn't even think to carry a gun around, just in case Yogi got the idea of, eating them. I wasn't going to go out like that. And, I considered bear spray as well. I don't want to kill the bear, but I'm not going to end up with 60 stitches and losing quarts of blood or just worse yet, eaten alive. I mean, or almost as bad getting an arm ripped off or something. I mean, these are huge beasts, what are the paws are like the size of your head. And when that ranger told me the bear spray didn't work, I was like, well, that's all I got to know. All I need to know, I got 200 grain hard cast buffalo boar in my Glock 20. And anyway, so the ranger at the station, she was basically, frankly speaking, I grew up around the feminist movement, so, I know my lesbians. And this was, a obese butch lesbian from someplace like, I guess, San Francisco. And, I said to the other worker there, whatever, 50-year-old uncle, I said, well, $50 for a can of bear spray, that's pretty ridiculous. That's kind of, criminal speculation on something that, some people think is a necessary item. I mean, I guess I would try to carry bear spray. I don't know, bear spray in one hand, my Glock in the other. it's like a Montana gangster rap, song or something, I guess. But and I'm like, well, it's just pretty, it's criminal speculation, I was like, that's, way overpriced. I think I'll just, I'm good with my Glock 20, 200 grain hard cast. And immediately the butch liberal lesbian, jumps at me and is like, well, it's not illegal to carry a gun in Yellowstone, but if you discharge it, you'll be a test case. And I'm like, whoa, oh my God, San Francisco, holy crap, calm down. And I just stared at her because I was trained, not to engage with, crazed, hysterical butch liberals. And she had a gun, and she's hysterical and she's hostile and aggressive, just like one of those grizzlies. But and then her follow-up question was, "Oh, are you armed now?" And I said, I could have not answered that question, but I was like, no, or my holster, but not my gun, liberal. It was quite, when I think back on it, and you watch people who interact with, basically dirty cops who want to wipe their ass with the Bill of Rights, nowadays I might tell her, look, tell her what I just told you, basically my people grew up in Indian country on the frontier, and the bears were eating people back then. And, my own mother told me, bring a slug gun. A 357 is too weak. So, we're not a bunch of coastal liberals. I mean, we were anarcho-communists, sympathizers with the Wobblies, the industrial workers of the world, but, that didn't include being a hateful, butch lesbian, worker hater, a grizzly hugger. It was just really, God, my view on that is they should just, if you're a liberal, unless you're really minding your manners, you should just be purged from the Ranger Service. I was you could call me, a woods guide with the Boy Scouts for, a couple of years up in upstate New York when I was young, and, whatever, I was very young. I was like 14, 15, 16, so whatever, but I don't know if professionalism was really a thing when I was that age, but still, I wouldn't have attacked someone like that. That's just, it's outrageous. It's just disgusting. It's un-American. If you're a stupid San Francisco liberal, you have no business being in the West, around normal people. And in my case, my family comes from Indian country, comes from the frontier. And I was going to say my great-grandfather's second wife was Ojibwe. My cousins, by marriage are Lakota, Menominee, etc. In that side of the family, in a lot of ways, you can't be more American. I mean, railway workers, miners, etc. They founded the state of Michigan. So what? And then I also went to the Boiling River, and that was very nice. I'll have to go back there again. I'm thinking of buying an old, Chevy Suburban, and doing, camping through that. Frankly, I don't want to deal with idiots who, burn campfires, and it's like Pittsburgh in the 70s. The pollution gets so bad around these idiots. So, if I have to be around idiots, I want to sleep inside the Suburban, and also bears. I don't want to end up as a bear taco. So, or some skell walks up on me. It's a little harder to kill me if I'm in the vehicle and they can't quite see where they're shooting. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. But at any rate, what else to say? Oh yeah, so I went to the Boiling River, and it was very nice. It's like, what is it? Glacial river, I guess it is, next to the hot springs or the geysers, and the water, whatever it is, however many degrees the water is coming from the geyser, mixes in with the glacial river, and then creates like a kind of jacuzzi, on the side of the river. And that was fabulous. I went there in October, but I brought my kit bag with my Glock 20, and I had the whatever, you know how it is. It's gun, trigger cover, special pouch. It's safe, but again, I don't want to get eaten by the bear while I'm in the jacuzzi. So I put the kit bag with the Glock, some feet away on a rock, and was in the jacuzzi and in there with a ranger, I guess, young one, again, a liberal ranger. And I was like, oh, those other people, they look local, are they trustworthy? I don't want whatever, anything to happen, grab for the bag or whatever. And, he's like, oh, why? And I'm like, well, I've got my, my Glock 20 in there. And, he's like, why do you have that in there? And I'm like, well, there are bears around. we're naked and there are bears around, and we're like cooking, so yeah. But I guess the bears, nowadays they're imperialist bears, so the suburban tourists are feeding them constantly, from whatever leftovers they leave lying around, just from that even. So probably not to worry, unless you're a park ranger and you don't bring a gun, and you get 60 stitches when the grizzly attacks you. Anyway, so you get my point, But this liberal stroke, again, he was just totally freaked out, and he got up and left, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I explained to him, well, I have a gun card. It's good for, whatever the state was, Montana, Wyoming, I guess. It's probably constitutional carry now. The gun was safely stowed. I just wanted to make sure it was even more safe, around unknown contacts. And what else can I say? But that was too much for this butthurt liberal. And so I guess my attitude is, basically being a Teamster in Chicago, having family from the UP, family who are real, if you can't handle reality, just stay in Park Slope, Brooklyn, stay in San Francisco, don't come out, if you want to visit a place like Yellowstone, go at a time when you won't bother the rest of us, or, maybe go in the summer, or whenever you go, just stay away from us. Really, I guess if the Park Service or whatever has to hire these liberals, maybe they should give them an evaluation first. What do you think of people who carry guns in Yellowstone? How do you think bears act? Do you think it's possible a grizzly might charge someone? Do you think it's, acceptable that person might then shoot the grizzly? Otherwise, you get this crazy, hysterical Butch with a gun, assaulting people, basically, and, in a federal facility. It's just absolutely, insane. And inappropriate, and these people should be purged from the federal service, acting like that. I feel the same way about cops who abuse their authority and wipe their ass with the Bill of Rights. But anyway, so and there was one other thing. Oh, right, and I was interested in the bear gun question. So I ended up talking to this guide at an outfitter's in, I guess it was Montana somewhere, and on the phone. And what he told me was he carried a Smith & Wesson, the Scandium super light, 4-inch Smith & Wesson. And, people say, well, what the hell is that thing used for? I guess, in day-to-day, maybe, 44 special, and if you had a hard cast load, good barrier penetrator, etc. especially if you reload. That's expensive as hell. But in his case, what he told me was, he carried it with real, 44 Magnums. And if he saw a bear, even at, I think, like, let's say a football field away, and the bear was showing signs of aggression, like pawing the ground, I guess, like woofing, barking, that sort of thing. Don't ask me, I haven't been around, bears my whole life, but, he described, the signs of bear aggression. Basically what he said was, in that case, he would cock the revolver into single action, take careful aim, braced aim, and shoot the bear, I guess, in the head, on the spot that would, pretty much kill it instantaneously. And then when the DNR, I guess, showed up and questioned him, he said, he would say, he's done this before. He said, I've been a guide in Montana, like long distance guide. That's why he had the ultralight, 44 Magnum. And he said, I've been doing this 20 years. I've been all over the wilderness with, bringing, groups in around. And you can't tell the difference between a bluff charge and a real charge until the bear actually, hits you or bites you, and you're either, suffering serious trauma, blood loss, or, you're missing your head or whatever, your neck. And so he said, no one can tell. I'm an expert, I can't tell. So if a bear exhibits signs of aggression like that, even from that distance, I just kill it. And deliberately. And then he described, you got to skin, I guess, the bear, and I forget all the particulars, but that really stuck with me. And so, and that's night and day from our Butch lesbian from San Francisco, basically threatening me, trying to arrest me, because she hates the white penis devil. So, So that was my experience in Yellowstone, and assuming I go back I'm in Moscow now. Other side of the family was basically from this part of the world, and our trade union leader on the American side of the family, he fled here in 20 whatever year it was. Big Bill Haywood. He's buried in the Kremlin Wall. He was from Montana? Yeah, like around Butte, Idaho, Montana, so out west. So I'm here now, maybe until October, November, and then if I go back early enough, I might possibly go up to South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, try to drive up there. Certainly, that would be very enjoyable. Or, maybe go in the spring. I know, once it gets too far into even the fall, the roads get closed because of, sudden snowstorms, whiteouts, and blizzards. So, maybe I might, stay down south in Arizona, Texas, and then drive up to, Montana, etc., in the spring. So...